So yeah, hi again. My name is Federico, and I have a couple of things today. So one, I got this request for making a state ornament like the one here, and I think there is this like common pattern for ornaments that I think we can explore. And then I'll show you a couple of like rabbit holes I went down to with this ornament thing. But I think I'm gonna try and show you like the simplest way to approach it. So let's start with that one. Let's see. So I have a blank Cuttle project here. And I'm just gonna get started here. So let's call it the state ornament. So the basic idea here is that we have the state outline, then we have the state name with some text that has tails, little swirls, and then we have a backer that is like offset. So let's start by grabbing that state outline. So I'm gonna use the noun project, which is a place where you can get sort of any SVG. This might be coming to Cuttle soon, where you can just grab any of these icons. But like for now, I'm just gonna grab it straight from the noun project. So I'm gonna look for the state for Ohio map, or just like that. So there are a bunch of choices here, and some of them have outlines. But I'm gonna grab one that doesn't have outlines, just because I want to be able to control the outline. So this is just like a standard SVG that I can just drag and drop into Cuttle, and then I get my SVG here. Similarly, you could download another SVG and go to File and import SVG, and then you would get a very similar result. So that's that. So I saw some people were like talking about this on Facebook. When you grab an SVG, then it will come in with a specific size and a specific origin. And so often it's nicer to move that origin to the center of the canvas, to the like 0, point. And then if you want to like resize your SVG, you can move it from here. You can click here or on the scale. And I'm going to start by resizing it to like roughly the size I want to make it. So I want it like 3 inches wide. And then you can sort of like bake those changes in, if you wish, by going to Edit and then Convert to Paths. Notice that like, I changed the scale appears changed here, and the origin is changed, has certain numbers. But if I select Convert to Paths, I'm blocking it here. If I select Convert to Paths, all of that resets. Didn't mean to do that. The transform here resets. So now the path is literally just a bunch of anchors, and it doesn't have a transform applied to it. So anyway, that's a quick thing to know. It doesn't matter a ton, but like sometimes it's nice to do that. I mean, what matters the most is to move the origin to the center. All right. So the first thing I want to do with this state is I don't want it to be filled. I just want it to have the stroke. Because the thing I want to do with this stroke is I want to control the width by applying this modifier called outline stroke. So the thing that allows me to do is to, it immediately gives me a cut with an outside and an inside, but then I can control the width exactly. And I think like, for this size about, what is this, 1/8 of an inch width should do. I suppose, yeah, I mean, I did it this way because like if I were to grab the ornament that has already an outline, then I would have to like do the SVG that has an outline, I would have to do a bunch of calculations to figure out the exact width. All right, the next thing I want to do is grab that text and tails fonts, text with tails. So I'm going to search here for text with, is this one down here, tails. Maybe I can search tails. Yeah, there we go. So connect text with tails. So I'm going to place it right in the center. I'm going to type Ohio. And then another thing to note here is that not all of the fonts that are recommended for these have the uppercase O, or the uppercase. So I'm going to make the O uppercase. And so you should notice that whenever that's not the case, you get this like warning down here that says the font doesn't have a left tail variation for the uppercase O, so lowercase has been chosen. So there are just two fonts that have uppercase from these recommended ones. So for the ones that have tails, that is. So I think, so one is Goldie Rainbow. Yeah, that one has uppercase. And then the other one, I think, is Penthouse. Yeah. You can browse them all and see what you find. So Goldie Rainbow, Penthouse has uppercase. So I'm gonna go for the Goldie Rainbow one. Let's make it a bit bigger. So I'm gonna increase the size. How big did I make it? 110 points. Something like that. I figure some of these things might be too thin to actually cut. So I use that thicken option that just kind of chunkifies the font. It makes it like thicker so it doesn't disappear when you cut it. And that's my basic setup. If you look at the inspiration photo, the font that they have has this kind of cool swirl on this side. I didn't find the font with the cool swirl, but like I think this one should do. All right, so I guess I could name this component state name. And to finish it off, I can simply, I can just do a Boolean union. So it cuts in a single piece. And so that's the first thing I cut. When I cut it as a single piece, it looks like this. Very thin. It's kind of like somewhat delicate. So it's so delicate that it really makes sense to have a backer for it. So let's create that backer. Have a question about Canadian provinces. Are they included in the noun project? That's a fair question. Let's see. Let me get that noun project. Here we go. I don't know, something like Alberta. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So yeah, I guess you can grab Canadian provinces from there. Yeah, cool. All right, thanks for the question. So go back to. All right, so the next step is I want to create that backer. So the easiest thing to do here is to create another component. So I'm going to create another component, and in that component, I'm going to drag my state name and everything else. I mean, the one I just created, and I want to expand it. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to apply that modifier called expand. So that creates the kind of offset that I want. I think about 1/8 of an inch does it. Is that 1/8 of an inch? Yeah, that's 1/8 of an inch. I can just type like 1 divided by 8, and that does the trick. So on these one, they just kind of like wrapped the ribbon around the hole created by the thing, which is legit. It looks good. I thought it would be nicer to add a hole because not all states are going to balance as nicely as Ohio does. Also, specifically, Ohio is like a very kind of squarish. It has like a lot of blank space in the middle So it makes it particularly suitable for these. So I'm gonna rename this component the backer. And so I guess you could, at this point, you could just cut it as is. You could, you could create like a cut file. Actually, somebody asked about creating templates, and I'm gonna show something. So we often do this thing where we create a preview component, and then we create a cut component, which is the cut file. And so for the preview, usually we assemble the components in order as they are. So, and then we can apply some colors. So for example, I can apply a fill to this one, make it like some kind of light brown for the backer. And then I can take the state name, put it in place, and then apply a fill to that one. Let's make it white. So that would be my preview. That's the way I want to look at it. And then for the cut, I want to create it in such a way that it includes those same components, like the backer and the preview, but separate. And so in this case, we could simply place them like so, the backer and the state name. And then here you can also change the stroke attributes to make them kind of optimized for laser cutting. And then when you go to the README, you create the component, and so you include the preview component first, which is the one that allows you to see the way it looks. And then you click this plus down here. So actually notice that like this one has a little arrow. So that's what you get as the download. But if this is the component you get when you hit download button. But if I add another component, I can create the cut. And notice how this little arrow here now changed to the cut. So here I see the preview, but when I hit download, what I get is the one that has this little arrow. So when I download SVG, then that's the one I get. Just quick sort of template. One last thing is like a common thing to this particular pattern is that when you cut these pieces, then it's difficult to align the front one to the back. So something we do very often is that on the backer, we place this outline, and then we contract it by a very small amount. So we apply this contract or inset modifier, and if it's too much, then it kind of disappears. But about 0.03 inches kind of does the trick. And we usually make this one blue stroke because that's that's the common kind of stroke color. So anyway, this should give you like the basic ornament as requested. The one kind of extra thing I wanted to add is like a hole for those states that don't have an easy place to hang it. One question someone is asking is, when designing, should you think of components as layers? Kinda. I think the way layers are handled by a lot of other software are more akin to the way they appear here in the inspector. What I mean by that is like this. So here I place my state name. Let's see. This is the state name that has the expand. I'm going to give it a fill. And notice how this one is at the bottom, and then the one I gave a stroke to, it's like on top, so it appears on top. And if I change the order of those here, if I place one at the bottom, notice how it kind of disappears. That's because the one with the fill is on top, like a layer would be, and the one at the bottom is hidden by that top layer, so to speak. So I think this is more like the layer. I'm going to change the order again. So I think this section over here is more like the layers. I think the components are more meant to be used as like you create something and then you apply a series of transformations to that thing that you create. So like in the case of this ornament, we created this like state outline with the with the text in the middle. So that's our component, and then to that component I apply a series of transformations because, you know, I take this component and then I turn it into the backer by applying the expand, and I turn it into the outline by applying the contract. And then in the preview, I drag those into here as layers, more or less, but they are like sort of layers that have like some sort of transformation applied to them, some attribute that you change. So yeah, I guess to answer that question, they are a bit like layers, but they're like really fancy layers that have like extra spice. The thing I wanted to add to it is that on the backer, I wanted a hole. So the most common way to add hole that we like for adding holes is that we place a circle. We select the size of the circle to be the size of the hole. So very often is 0.19 inches. I'm gonna give it a white fill. And so I'm gonna hide this one for a moment. So if I make it like this, I can just place it anywhere and anywhere inside of the filled area, and then I can apply flatten to those. So I'm gonna modify, go to flatten. So what flatten does is that it turns everything that is a color into a cut outline, and anything that's white into a hole. So I'm gonna apply it. And so you can see here that if I select this stroke result, this is what I would cut. I don't love the way this hole is placed. Oh, because of course it's gonna be interrupted by my other thing. So instead, I'm gonna go back and move it up, and I'm gonna change the stroke attribute of that hole to be not a hairline. I'm blocking it. I'm gonna change the stroke attribute to be not a hairline, to have the same color of that outline, so gray, and I'm gonna move the alignment of the stroke to the outside. That means the white part remains the size that I selected, 0.9 inches, and then the outside ring that surrounds it, I want it to be 0.12, that's what we commonly do. So that creates that kind of ring on the outside with a hole in the middle, and because I applied flatten to it, then everything gets joined. So that creates kind of like that additional hole. And here, if I look at my preview, it gets added to it, and in my cut, that looks good. And then I cut it, just to show you. Notice that I added that stroke, that inset score, so that didn't cut all the way through. This is a single piece. But then what that does is that it helps me glue this one in place. And this inset, because like once I glue it in place, the stroke that score kind of disappears, but it allows me to align it kind of nicely. So that's the state ornament with that hole added to it. So let's go back here to the. Perhaps this backer shouldn't have that attribute. Oh yeah, I hit it. Sorry. Yeah, that looks. Maybe this backer should be. Anyway, I was thinking I could make it red, so that outline is red. There we go. So it matches the pattern. Also, often for the cut, for this cut, instead of just placing them like that, we use this like auto layout component, auto layout. And the way that one works is that it lets you just type the name of any component here, and then it just places it regardless of the size. So we have the state name separated by a comma, and then the backer, and then it places them right there. That's another way to add those. I guess in that case I want these to be red as well. Maybe too many niceties here. So yeah, that's the so that's for this ornament. I was gonna show you I was gonna show you a rabbit hole I went real quick. Just so you know my mistakes and you don't go down this rabbit hole perhaps. So it turns out there is this, let's see, I go here. There is a font that you can get that is called State Face. There is a downloadable font right here. And when you use that font, let me get a new project. So to upload a font, you only click this button here that says Add Font, and then you can like grab the font from your files. But I already uploaded it, so it appears here on my fonts, and it's called State Face. And so it's kind of interesting because the way it works is where did I put it? Here we go. There is this like keyboard map. So for every US state, you choose a letter. So for example, California would be E. And so I have to type E here to get California. So one big downside of this particular thing is that it has a lot of detail. So notice how California has the islands added to it. Then let me see another state with islands like Alaska. Is it A? Well, no. Anyway, that's one, a bit of a downside is that it's kind of hard to find the states, but like Hawaii, for example, is K. Oh, uppercase? Yeah, there we go. So it might have just too much detail to be used. I did try to use it. So wait, let me find it. State test. This one, yeah. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole of like just adding a selection component here that will like let you choose the state, and so that's simply a map that maps all those letters to, maps the B to Alaska, the A to the D to Arizona, and so on and so forth, and then creates a front. So for example, if you choose, let's try Ohio. Then it's kind of nicely placed because it replaces the letter. But then if you choose a state like California, it's a mess. It's this like it's like it doesn't work, because then it creates the islands over here, and then you kind of have to deal with those. So then I was thinking maybe you change the scale of the state. So anyway, this is an example of like a sort of template that would be really hard to make work with all of the states in a single section. So I think, Texas is okay, I guess, if you, yeah. Anyway, so rabbit hole, don't recommend it. don't go down this rabbit hole. Okay, so I think, there's another question. What is this going to look with a much longer name? Like, what about 2 words? Oh, good question. Let's test it. So, unfortunately, the way I did it, I just really have to recreate it for each state. But let's do it. So let's say North Dakota. Actually, I don't know what the text with tails does here. North. Oh, okay. That's not terrible. I guess you have to change the line height to make it work. Something like that. Yeah, it's a good question. I think this is definitely like a state-by-state template. And like, I guess in this case, I would, yeah, let's search for that. Get my num project here. Let's do North Dakota. I'm gonna do the same here, just place it. I guess I'm gonna backtrack. So I'm gonna ungroup these. I'm gonna hide that one. I'm kind of repeating the same operation. So I'm gonna place it in the center. I did the scale of this one to be about 3 inches. This one probably makes sense to make it bigger. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing I did before, which is I convert to paths. Then I'm gonna change the fill, stroke, and apply the outline to it. Outline stroke, and I did 1/8 of an inch. I would probably scale this one up a little bit too. Scale it a little bit more. So that's an option. And then the way I did it is I just applied the Boolean union. And then the nice thing about that is that all of the other operations I just did, the components applied all the same operations. So the backer is there, the preview is still there, and the cut's still there. So in this case, this is not exactly a template. It's more like the word template is appropriate, but it's more like a setup or like a kit in a way. Going back to the question about the layers, whether components are layers. So yeah, they're like these kind of fancy layers that apply a bunch of operations to it. I suppose in the case of 2 words, I would also maybe ditch the tails. Yeah, let's try it. Just to finish it off in 2 minutes. Let's hide those. And if you don't want the tails, you can use the same font, which was Goldie Rainbow, but with the regular text. So I'm gonna grab Goldie Rainbow here. And then I'm gonna type it. Just make the size bigger. Probably change the line height again. And then I'm gonna move it down a little bit. So I think with 2 letters, as long as it's readable, let's change the size. So as long as it's readable and it's connected, then we can apply the Boolean union. And I think this will cut fine too. Let's see the preview. Yeah. So yeah, it's more of a sort of aesthetic choice, I think, that you can make for making these state ornaments. But I think the same set of operations kind of applies. I suppose, yeah, thank you for that question, Suzanne. Okay. Last question is, is the only way to remove the tails at the end to edit the vectors? No, not necessarily. I think I was just, so the thing I was just showing is that you can either use the component called text with tails. So if you use that component, then the text will add the tails. So we were using the Goldie Rainbow here. So notice that it adds the tails. But if you don't want the tails, you can always use the regular, say, connected text. So I'm going to search for connected. I'm going to place it here just to compare it. And so the font on this one is Goldie Rainbow. If I change the font on this one to Goldie Rainbow, it just uses the same font, let's use the same word too, but it doesn't have the tails. So that's the way I just did North Dakota. Can you do a tail before and a tail after? Yeah, I think you can. So if you do north, in this case, there is an option here that says start style and end style. Ooh, I'm blocking it, sorry. So whenever you have the tail selected, there are options here that say start style tail and end style tail, but you can select none. And so then it puts the tail on north. And then I suppose you would have to separate those two. Oops, it's my timer. Yeah, so you would have to separate those two. So I'm gonna duplicate it. And so say type the second word here. And then you would change the start style to none and the end style to tail. So then that would give you, one tail, that's a cool look. I like it. So then you could like place these inside of the state outline. All right, cool. So that was half an hour. Thank you so much for all the questions. I think this was like a cool kind of deep dive into playing around with text with tails. Yeah, I didn't get to all the questions, but I usually do half an hour. But thank you very much. I'll answer the other questions in the text. Thank you so much for coming. I'll see you in the next one, and please keep the requests coming. All right, bye.